Welcome back. This is Dayna and Dayna on the Divine Ethereal Beings podcast. And today they dropped in the topic of fear during times of rapid expansion, especially in light of the current amplified energies that we're navigating collectively here on the planet. So yeah, that's what we got today. That's where we're starting. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, this is always a bit of a fun one sometimes because fear can be seen in many, many different perspectives, as we all know. But what instantly I got brought back to is some of my own expansions and how some of my own fear showed up in those ways that you don't always think it would when it's good things, when the good things are rolling or things are changing for the better for you. In expansive ways that you've always kind of wanted or you've been asking for. And you wouldn't think fear would be a part of that, but definitely it does turn out to be a lot of the time a piece, because the body and the mind are used to being in one way. So when expansion and rapid expansion especially starts to happen, the fear kind of jumps up in the body and says, well, but we're not used to this. What are we doing? Like, this is too much too fast. You're like, I just got the image of like the kid running down the hill and you don't really know how to stop all of a sudden because your legs are going too fast, and then your brain's going, oh my god, we very well might just die in this moment, right? And I'm sure we've all had that moment as children, literally. But it's the same kind of analogy that I feels like very much comes up for this situation.
Yeah, well, and I'm being reminded of a mentor I was working with long ago, and uh, fear and excitement come up together. They were coming up as the same energy for me, and I literally, like, my DNA was like cross, like it wasn't connected properly, and so there was this etheric DNA kind of like pulling it apart and putting it back together, so that fear and fear connected and excitement connected, and so that I could start, like, these could be different energies instead of being wrapped together. And it just, like, it feels like an important element to bring up. I know that's a little like out there to talk about, but it's legit, it's valid, it's true. And so it's like there are so many factors that go into play with this topic. It's like, if you're navigating things and as you're trying to stay grounded and clear, which is really important when you're in these places, is having these checkpoints, having these moments. Um, if you like, it's okay to need help. It's okay to have a session or a coach or whatever else. Like, you don't have to do it alone, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I would recommend trying not to do it alone, because a lot of times you almost actually won't probably recognize it on your own, to be honest with you. It's a sneaky little bitch. She comes up and really grabs you on those ones because, like you said, the fear and excitement can be so much similar and the same kind of almost the same vibration, I guess is the best way to put it, because that way the body, it gets excited and then it gets fearful and then it gets excited and fearful, and it causes like this anxiety, no anxiety, anxiety, no anxiety. And that's probably, everybody's probably felt that, right? Something fun and good comes up in life and you get excited about it, and then you're like, have the holy shit moment, I don't know, and you kind of start to doubt yourself and you thought, maybe I should put the foot on the brakes just to get this to slow down a little bit. And the reason for it is just because we're just not used to that kind of change. We don't live in a society that allows for this really expansive, fast change that happens all the time. What we usually are created from society is to run on the same hamster wheel. So yes, we're used to running. We're used to moving our own body in our own specific way, in a frequency of running, if you want to put it that way. But when you're asking for true change and it's an actual energetic change, is where a lot of that fear starts to creep up, because it goes, wow, we're not used to this. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to handle this. This is the unknown. And once again, the unknown is very scary to most people. And I understand that, because it's not something we actually feel like we can control. So in which the body has its up and down emotion. And I just had this laugh because I just thought of a friend of mine way back when we were kids. She used to get emotional about the really good things. So she'd have like this moment where she'd cry a little and then she'd start laughing, then she'd cry a little more and she'd start laughing. And she almost looked like we'd almost go into hysterics laughing with her, because it was just this really funny way she would kind of process. But that is almost the exact picture of fear and excitement right there, and how it can show up in other people's bodies. Now, for myself, it didn't show up like that. It showed up mostly as excitement, but the fear was so underlying, I didn't actually almost know it was even there until it kind of hit peak. And then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, I feel like I need to slam on the brakes. I feel like the other shoe's going to drop. This is too much, too good, too fast. This can't happen like this. This is not how the world works, which is just not true. But that is the basis of what we've all kind of been taught, right? So then in which we have to go inwards and be able to do some of that inward work to allow and release that. But that is where, when you say like getting help or having a session done is a lot more helpful for that. Not only does it expedite it in getting through it, but if you're not even aware it's even there, sometimes that's when it might show up with someone else, is being able, that person may see it more for you and being able to say, you know what, I feel like there's something lingering here, which is your fear, even though it's all good things that might be feeling like they're happening, right? It
Right.
can be interesting.
Yeah, and I'm being brought around to like this concept of like, how do you even recognize that you're in that place, right? And so it can look and feel like confusion and frustration, and on top of like the anxiety, right? Or the holy shit moments. And so, you know, one, it's normal. Also, can we just normalize this? Like, this is part of being a human.
Yeah.
First of all, like, and there are those of us that are like change and transformation experts. Like, this is why we're here on this planet, is to do this and to help you do this, to like walk through your fire with you, holding your hand. Like, we've been through crazy, crazy things. And, like, there's a reason for that. So, and then, yeah, just back to the collectively, like, this is happening for everybody. This is supposed to be happening on the planet right now.
Yeah, not only is it happening for everybody, but let's put the amplification energy on top of it, So you got all the really amazing things happening, and you've got that snowball rolling, and that kid's running down the hill and he's about to lose his legs, It's all good, it's all fun, it's amazing, it's happening. But the amplification of it also obviously helps momentum, but it can also amplify the pieces of the fear. And I have already seen this happen with a few people that I've seen in sessions before, or that they have come to me after, and they said, oh, I slammed on the brakes and I'm not really sure why, and it's just because it just gets to be so much that the brain goes, we can't handle all this anymore. Let's just hit the brakes so we can breathe. And that's just an automatic reaction that the body wants to have to create space again, because the body goes, okay, friend, we love you, but we need space to be able to process and move through this. And if you can't give us that space yourself, we're going to make the pedal stop. And then that's when the crash, I like to call, happens, because then everything does feel like it comes to a standstill sometimes. The momentum you had, either whatever it might have been in your personal life and business and career, in relationships with people, whatever it is you were striving and whatever was moving forward, can feel like it all of a sudden just literally hit a wall, and everything just kind of comes to a dead standstill, which gives a lot of people the impression of, okay, I just failed, nothing worked. I better just not pursue this any longer, which hurts my heart, because it's really nothing to do with that at all. It's just your body said, well, if you're not going to create space for me consciously, we have to do it for ourselves. So we are going to put a stop to this for now. People forget that there's a for now at the end of that, not forever.
Yeah. And so what's really coming through for me right now is you can really kind of correlate it to this experience of labor, right? And
Well, I can't, because I've never been in labor, but I
well,
mean,
right. Okay, but okay, it's this expansion and this contraction that, like, your physical body, your nervous system, your emotional body, like, you have to go through this expansion and contraction in order to move forward. You're not moving in a straight line. You got to have that wave, that up and down, that like, it's just the way that things transition, how they occur, how they come into existence, right? Like it starts as an idea, as creation energy, and we are anchoring it in through our body. And our body has to be able to, and our nervous system really, and our mind, all pieces of ourselves, right, have to be able to hold the frequency of everything going on. And whether it's in the personal life with the transitions that so many people are experiencing right now. I can't tell you how many people, like, relationship transitions and job transitions, housing transitions, right? And it's like, or death transitions, they have loved ones that are and they're grieving, right? I come into contact with a lot of people who have, children or teenagers. They have different things that they are navigating based off the age of their children and their families, their parents, right? It's just it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for assistance. That's why we're doing this podcast, to help give you support, give you information that's accessible. And just back to the fear piece, right? Like, it's okay. Your body.
Nobody's gonna tell you that fear ever ends, just so you know. Like it's never, there's never an end goal with fear. The only thing that becomes easier is when you start to recognize that you let it go faster. That's probably the best thing I can say, is like the next step up from understanding self and your self-awareness. And you can go back if you haven't listened to those podcasts. We've done one on self-awareness already. But it's again coming back to understanding and then allowing the process to become easier, but there's never an end goal, unfortunately. This is an adventure here, and I call it an adventure for a reason, because no matter what, how bored we'd all get if we just like hit end goal already. We'd be like, yeah, we got it. Okay, we don't really need to be here anymore. Like, let's make our exit, right? That's not what Earth's about. This is one of the toughest lives in the galaxy for a reason. It's called a tough life for a reason, because it is the heaviest duality that exists here, which means we can have the highest of the highs, but we can also have some of the heaviest energy, that also exists in that same kind of duality. And now it's just finding the balance. And when I say you find the balance, that's when things get easier to do.
Well, and even what is finding the balance. So I look at finding the balance as being able to hold the whole spectrum of experience in the highs and lows, and being able to hold that capacity. And as I'm able to hold the extremes become less or narrower in their range. And so the balance is still a range. It's not like a single line. I think a lot of
No.
times we think of balance as like a
Well,
single.
everybody thinks of everything so linear.
Yeah.
I get it. Like in the 3D world, it should look like it should just be this linear thing all the time, right? But it's just not, nothing is ever linear. I mean, if you really even think about all the things you think about in a day, like really become aware of all the decisions, all the things you think about, all the stuff you have to do, even as it starts from the moment your eyes open in the morning, right? It's just this, it's crazy. And when you think of how unlinear that is, even, you can't see the world as linear anymore, because there's just so much going on all the time. But the reason for it is, when things seem linear, it seems like there's this straight line that everybody should be able to walk. But that's also where it causes the confusion, because there is no such thing as a straight line either. So, like, let's be completely honest. I mean, it was used as a factor to give false hope, almost, in a way, to say there's something perfect out there that you should be trying to achieve, which again creates more fear, because if people think, oh, if I can't achieve that, then I'm not good enough for whatever is being expected of me. So it's a whole big deal. We know that, but fear in general is a basis for using that against people in some ways, to try and get what others may want for self. And that's a greed aspect, of course, we know that. But again, fear is not linear either.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, and kind of the energetics of fear, and like how do we navigate that? Like, there it is important that you start learning how, like, when is fear a beneficial instinct for my body's survival versus when is fear my old patterning and wounds coming up, and because I'm operating from that space I can't see my reality for what it actually is, versus when is fear being used as a control mechanism. Like, and question that always, because it is a process of identifying for yourself within yourself, like, what's going on here? What is this fear? What is it telling me? Is it healthy fear? Is it unhealthy fear? Like, there are all these dynamics we could go into with this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's too many rabbit holes with fear, obviously, but the more you question everything, like do question everything, because not only does that lead you to your own truth, but if you don't question it, it's just like someone giving you the cookie and telling you, I promise it's just a cookie, there's nothing inside, and you just took that for what it is, and then you ate it, and it didn't turn out to be nothing inside, it turned out to be something that made you really sick, right? It's that blind notion of just, and I get that we all want to trust each other. I get that there's, we're a loving species for the most part, but we also have that duality that exists in ourselves as well. We can be very loving, but we can also be very invictive and want to, go towards our own our own things that may make us feel better in a way for ourselves, but it's not really helping as a collective. So I get that when some people are like, well, I do want to just trust people, and that's okay, but still question everything that you know about the person, or whatever is information is being given back to you. Does it feel good when it hits you, or is it not feeling good when it's hitting you? If it's not feeling good when it's hitting you, even words, there's something in there that will usually cause a fear trickle to come up and say, "Ooh, I don't know if that's true for us." And that's okay. But people see fear as this like death defying thing all the time, right? And it used to be. I get that. Back in the days and age, fear was very useful, but it's not useful where we're at anymore. We're evolving into a different place now. Our energy is changing here on Earth. It's moving into a very, very different space than we've ever been before. So in which we have to be able to transmute our fear and understand it for what it actually is now, before we can actually move forward with whatever it is you're trying to do. Whether that be in life, whether that just be in that simple moment of that situation, or trying to make a decision. It gets to be a lot. I understand that. I'm not asking everybody to question their entire life, but question it in the moments when you're feeling not so great anymore, or your anxiety is popping up. Well, why am I feeling anxiety? What am I scared of? As soon as you say, what am I scared of? Your brain's going to want to take you down the, we're scared of spiders, we're scared of snakes, we're scared of all these things, right? But at the same time, as soon as you slow it down and say, what am I actually scared of? Why is my anxiety showing up now? You'll always start to find the answers within yourself. And it might be surface level at first, but the deeper you go, I promise you, you're going to start to realize things about your fear that have been there probably for most of your life. And you just didn't even realize that it was actually part of the controls behind behind the puppet in a way, right?
Uh, there's a few things coming in right now, so I'll just try and touch on them real quick. Like, we've all seen the memes: face everything, fear, face everything and run, or fear, face everything and rise, right? There's that factor of it. And then, like, when we're talking about this discernment of the fear and what's it there for, and what we're what it's telling us. This is going to get really real now. Are we ready? um, I'm really like being reminded of situations of while I was married, of this extreme fear coming up where I was terrified. I was fearful of my safety, my life, my existence, right? And like physically, in the physical. And so it's like fear also just gets to be an indicator that something is wrong and something needs to change, right? Like, it's not always a like face the thing you're fearful of and walk through your fear,
No.
right? Like, it has information for you, I think, is like a really good point to make, and it's just unraveling what that wisdom and information is.
Yeah, and for the most part, I would say in today's age, fear is only just trying to tell you that there's something there for you to release. it is not usually saying we're literally going to possibly die in this moment, right? Like there's a big distinction too. Most people will know that between actual, if you've felt actual fear for your life, it feels different than what fear may feel like on a daily basis. And not to, say that fear is not valid, because it definitely is, but it's meant to be now as more of a learning tool than anything. And when it's important in the moment and your life might be on the line, of course, your body is going to kick into a fear mode that, is going to be a possible save you in that moment, of course. And that's never going to go away. That's instinct. We are all going to naturally have that. But what we're saying is fear going forward, where we're headed in evolution of consciousness and where we're headed as a species and a collective, needs to be transmuted and changed in a way that does not create pain and suffering for one anymore. It will be experienced in a way that is acknowledged, processed, and released in whatever way, whether that's changing a belief, understanding, whatever that might be, or just doing the situation. And usually it's just what I'm being reminded of is when I went to that first class at the training center just like the other week, and I was terrified to go by myself. It was just like this really silly fear that kept showing up of just going to an exercise class by myself, And that was silly fear because it was just childhood stuff that had come back and said, our experiences haven't always been great here. Are you sure you want to go? Right. And I just did it anyway. That's one of those fears. Like if it's just one of those little silly things about going to an exercise class, just go and do it. I promise you're not going to die, But when it comes to the inner stuff, and really understanding where some of that deep fear lies, it is simply meant to be a learning tool, transmuted, understood, and taken in a different direction. The new earth, evolution of consciousness, all these amazing things that are happening in an energetic state, and I understand a lot of people don't always get right now, but it's coming and it's already started, it's already here. In which this is why that amplification energy is partially here as well. It's saying, can we just amplify stuff? I know it doesn't always feel great, but we're going to amplify it on you so you now actually see it and you're not just bypassing it every day or putting it off every day saying, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just the way I am. It's getting to a point now where it's so uncomfortable for so many people that it's just being asked to look at. Look at me. Find out what I'm, just trying to show you. I just want to show you there's something better for us to live a higher, better life for you. That's it. We don't want to kill you. We just want you to understand there's more to this.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you said everything that I was like, I would be thinking something to say and then you would say it. And I'm like, okay, all right.
That's what happens when we put ourselves in a connected bubble.
Yeah. So yeah, there's information for you. I think is the biggest thing. Like it has information for you, and maybe that information has changed your situation. Maybe that's change your belief. Maybe that's, hey, look at me and feel me so that I can go and move and be let go of, right? Like there's so many possibilities, and in light of where we are and the amplification energies, this is why there are so many people out there able to help you. Like throw a stone and you're going to hit a modality that's going to work for you to help you, right? Like and healers and psychics and coaches, right? Like there are so many of us out there in every sort of like color, shape, and form you could possibly imagine. Like you will be able to find somebody who has a relevant life experience to what you've been through, who is where you want to go, right? Because it's always good to find people who have already done the thing. They're a few steps ahead of you, right? And they have a similar history. Like that is important. It is relevant for like these kind of things that we're talking about. I feel like it can be really valuable to kind of like use that sort of discernment and vet the people that you're utilizing to assist you. It can be really valuable to have that sort of mindset around that. I feel like you want to say something with this.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm not kind of that person. I'm not one to really vet people. I always go off into my intuition, but that's just naturally where I lie. If I like you and I feel good around you, I'm gonna want to work with you. That's even how I ended up with Sonia, with my mentor, because I didn't hardly know the woman. I just talked to her once on the phone and I was just, something clicked for me. So, if you're a person that needs that more logical side, 100% do as Dayna said, like vet them yourself, make sure you're feeling good about the whole situation. For myself, if you're more like, I would rather just go with my gut, or you trust that more and you don't want to think about all the things, go with the feeling of, do you really click with that person? There's something there you just feel really drawn to. It's funny because I mean, really, when I think back to my history and my mentor's history, she didn't have a whole lot in common with me, to be honest. There wasn't a whole lot of things that were really similar between my experiences and her experiences. Bits and pieces, absolutely, but not on a whole. I just saw her for who she was, and I thought, that's where I want to go, and that's how I'm going to get there. So
Right.
my fear was something that had to be looked at through a couple different lenses before I even understood it. But sometimes you get lucky and find one person that can help you with all that. Sometimes it's maybe multiple people that kind of get that well-rounded circle for you. So don't give up. Like if it's not happening with one person, don't be afraid to like put your feelers back out and see if there's maybe another person that's supposed to be in the mix, because it doesn't always happen with just one time. I got quite lucky. I call it luck. It's not really luck, I know that it's meant to happen, but I'm pretty happy, I guess, in the fact that I didn't have to do it from multiple different people. I was able to do it in multiple different times with the same person.
Yeah, and I think that a factor that comes into play with this and the difference that we're seeing here is like we're talking about, I was married with kids. I was in such a different, I had been a stay-at-home mom, right? I was hit upside the head with the spiritual 2x4, really crazy experience. Like there weren't resources for me 10 years ago that exist now. So there's like
Yeah.
a few like nuances of differences here. So like for me personally, I've been with many, like at least a good handful or more of mentors that I have worked with for multiple years, but it's like taking finding somebody who was on the spiritual path with the spiritual gifts, with the spiritual knowledge, with the same kind of I don't know how to explain this, but my soul came in with a purity of like just of knowing my non-negotiables, if you will, and as a really sensitive soul and how I experience things. I had a really challenging time, and now I know why, because I do have a really unique experience with my kind of spiritual awakening and spiritual process. In fact, I haven't found anybody yet. But it's like for me, it became really important at certain points in time that like you needed to be a single mom. Like there became a point in time where I stopped accepting advice from people who were not single parents, who were not single mothers, who had not been through an abusive marriage, who had not lived in a kind of like isolated ish state that was kind of like very more on the conservative side of things. There were just factors that I needed to consider so that I could receive learning from this individual, right?
Well, it
Like,
also comes down to feeling safe, right?
yeah, and it's a
That's where you
process.
aligned with feeling safe. Yeah. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is how this works, right?
Yeah.
Is some people are like me and they're just going to go with their gut and they're going to go, okay. And I mean, I've worked with other mentors and business like coaches out galore out my asshole. Like, let's be real. And did I really align with many of them? No. It was coming from probably not the best place that I was choosing to work with those people. But I also wasn't listening to my gut. I mean, if I was really listening, I would have probably not have worked with half of them, So it's going to be a learning curve. Like,
That's
so
my
just,
point. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's my
Yeah,
point. It gets
it's
to
pretty
be
funny. I think back on it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like want to slap myself for thinking about some of the people I did work with because I'm like, yeah, that was definitely not aligned. But hey, it's all good. It got me to where I am today. So what do you do?
well, and it's not even just with people you work with, right? Like because we're on this topic of fear and amplification of energies, right? So how is
Yeah.
this related, right? Like let's tie it back together. So for me, it's experience, like, not just with people I hired to be mentors in this or that or whatever, but even in like friendships and people who wanted to, women who wanted to step in, just good, caring people, good, kind hearted people who wanted to help, right? Like, trust yourself. It's a process. Like, tune into the fear or whatever other emotion you're feeling and ask what the information is there. Because I also was very good at not listening and trusting myself.
Oh, we all, I think. We're all quite good at that, I believe. Yeah, so we'll wrap this one up. I'm not getting as much information. They're kind of starting to cut me down. So again, coming back to fear pieces, to explore it for yourself. Start there first. And if you're getting to the point where it's either making you extremely uncomfortable and you would like support, go out and start trying to find some of that support, whether it's with us, whether it's with someone else. Find someone that you are comfortable and feel safe with. I think would that's kind of like hopefully the main point we can get across, because if you're comfortable and you feel safe, that means you'll be able to move through whatever you've got hanging out or need to explore, because we both get it's very uncomfortable to explore fear sometimes. And but having that space to do so, and you feel safe and you're comfortable, is the best space you can do it in. And sometimes that's by yourself, but when you get to the deeper stuff, it might not always be the case. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Go find the people that you need. And, you know, like Dan said, there's boatloads of people out there now that are healers, intuitives, all the things. And there's all reason for it. There's a reason why there's so many coming out now, because there's a lot of us that need it. There's a lot of people that need help and bridges to be built, right? So go find those people.
I got nothing else.
You got nothing? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us on this one, and we will be back here soon with another topic, and our community is coming together, so please be keeping out for a watch on that, and we are excited to hopefully have you in the next episode.